And welcome once again. It is Let's Talk Tresco time. And today we have with us a special guest, Amy Hummer. And we'll get in a second, but just in case you are new here and you're asking yourself, what is Tresco? Well, Tresco has been around for over 55 years and been providing professional and individualized services, supports, and opportunities for people of any age with differing abilities, their families, and communities that they serve. In fact, Tresco currently provides services in 12 counties throughout New Mexico with three main divisions. Their TOTS Early Intervention, that's Tresco's founding early intervention program in Janiana and Sierra County, providing families and babies with from birth to age 3 therapy, education, coaching, and how to support their baby's developmental milestones. Day One Home Visiting is a parent as teachers affiliate program that partners with expecting families and families prenatal to age 5 to promote child development, parenting, supporting, and relationship building among the family, home visitors, and community. And of course, Tresco Works, where they offer community employment and opportunities to people with varying disabilities, including veterans and students through federal, state, and local contracts. In fact, they currently have over 50 contracts that provide quality custodial grounds and total facility management services in 12 counties throughout New Mexico. And if you need more information about Tresco, of course, you can always go online to trescoinc.org or give them a call, 575-528-2200. That is their general number. And of course, today we're actually going to be talking a little bit more about the TOTS program. And that direct number for the TOTS program is 575-527-4900. And Amy, thank you for coming in and welcome to the show there.
Thank you. Glad to be
And
here.
first off, let's go ahead and get a little bit of your background. What is it that you do?
Okay. I am the owner of Steinbornig Realtors. I
Mhm.
am the owner and the qualifying broker. Have owned that brokerage since 2006 and love what I do in the real estate world.
Oh, that's awesome. And of course, how long have you been in town?
So my husband and I moved here in 2000.
Mhm.
That was with what he was going to do, and that was to develop Mountain View Regional Medical Center.
Mhm.
And we had not lived in the state of New Mexico. We had moved all around in healthcare, and but ultimately found our home here. We moved here, and within a few years, we said, "How are we going to stay?" And that's when we bought a real estate brokerage so that we could stay part of the community and raise our kids in southern New Mexico.
Yeah, when you buy something, it kind of makes you want to stick around for a while, especially
Absolutely.
when it comes to business.
No, absolutely. And so we just knew that our kids were 2 and 4 when we moved here, and
Mhm.
we expected it to be a great place to live, but we found it was exactly where we wanted to raise our kids. And so
That's
we
okay.
made sure we could stay.
Yeah, that's a very common thing for a lot of people that come here to visit or come here to work for a little bit that they fall in love with it. I certainly did. I think I moved here in 1995,
Okay.
and even after some of the opportunities that I had that got me here changed a little bit, I said, you know what, this is a place that I'd like to stay. And
It,
I always love it when people come in and you hear those
yeah,
stories.
it offers a lot more than people realize it does. And if you live here and you embrace all the different things that you can get involved in, you fall in love. So that's what happened with us. And we've been here now for 23 years.
That also happens too. But yeah, yeah. Oh, in love with the place.
Yeah, in
Oh,
love with the place. I was
Okay,
already
yeah,
in love, Gino.
yeah. That's right. Yeah, because you came here with kids and all
Yeah.
that. But yeah. Speaking of your kids, there you mentioned that they were 2 and 4 when you got here,
Yes,
and I suppose at that point in time, is this where you initially became involved with Tresco?
it is. Our 2-year-old, Sam, at the time, we moved here from Las Vegas, Nevada,
Hmm.
and he wasn't talking. And we had recently put tubes in his ear, went and found a pediatrician here. I said, I really am concerned about this. And his recommendation was, you need to go check out Tresco Tots. So I really didn't have to look very far. I had a pediatrician that, in some form or fashion, was already connected to Tresco Tots, believed in their mission and what the services they were providing. And so I called, made my appointment, and Sam and I went on the journey with Tresco Tots.
That's awesome. And like you said, it's very nice to have a pediatrician that's going to go ahead and give those recommendations and tell you what's going on out there. But can you speak a little bit to like your concerns at the time and maybe some of the things that you're worried about when you came over to
Oh,
Fresno?
absolutely. I think one of the things as a parent that I saw was that when you can't communicate, you're
Hmm.
frustrated. So it affects behavior, right?
Yep.
And that was one of the key things that we were noticing with him was he couldn't communicate with us and tell us what he needed, what he wanted, how to. So what we quickly found out through the Tresco Tots program was they understood that. I don't think we had totally identified it, but from the beginning they understood that. So immediately they provided us tools so that we could, before he even talked, through sign language, he could communicate with us. And so behavior changed, his sleep patterns began to change. But as a parent, it was my second child, had not experienced this with my first child, was living in a brand new place. And so obviously we moved here from Las Vegas, Nevada, and where there's lots of options in healthcare in a large city like that. And so as a parent, you move and you think, okay, am I going to find what I need? Because this is when I'm on this journey with my child. And immediately we found the answer.
Oh, that's great. And I like to hear that they brought sign language into that, because that's a great way for some of the younger kids that aren't really talking to you verbally to go ahead and get that communication part in there. So I'm sure those simple signs like water or
Oh,
milk, or
milk and
yeah.
more, all those. I can remember all of that. And what I just remember is as a 2-year-old, when they can't tell you, they're going to throw a tantrum. They're going to get angry. They're going to cry. And it didn't take long for him to be able to release those frustrations. So then we could focus on his actual speech. So it was kind of it was staged, I think is the best way to look back on it.
Yeah. And what was that process like for you, as a parent coming into that program, like that first initial visit and getting that evaluation?
I look back at that and I was scared. I think that a lot of parents are scared when you're not sure what's going on, how you help your child. And what I remember is going through the evaluation, and even in that part of everything, they alleviated my fears. They described to me exactly the way the process was going to go, how they were going to communicate with me. So then you get to go home with your child that afternoon and think, we have an answer. We have things that we get to pursue now. And so it eventually made a significant difference in Sam's life. But for me, I just can remember going home thinking, this is
Things
it.
are going to be okay.
Yeah, things are going to be okay.
Things are going to be okay.
And so if you look at the Tresco Tots program, if I could define it that way, they didn't just take care of Sam, they took care of me. And I think that was a key part of that.
And you know what, that is one of the things that defines Tresco as a whole, is that they do like to work with the entire family. When sometimes what you think that they're working on the child themselves, and they do, you work on the child, they work on some of the speech therapy, all the other different developmental things, because they want to hit those milestones, but the fact that they do involve a lot of the family, I mean, I'm sure that your 4-year-old was trying to help out with that stuff, and you and your husband they sent you with some homework and different things to do
every single time. I think that everyone in our family can remember having to suck pudding out of a cup with a straw, and we would do it with him, right? It was like my husband would get home from work that night, and here's me, and here's my 4-year-old and our 2-year-old, and we joined in that process. And what I loved though was that in that Tresco program, we had group time and then we had one-on-one time. And so the group time let us be around other children with varying abilities and disabilities. And for a 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old like Sam, he immediately gravitated to other children that had, some that are talking up a storm, which he wasn't, but they had some either, limbs or, things like that. And so all these kids kind of pitched in for each other as we had group activities and stuff. And then we'd have our one-on-one private time with the speech therapist, and it was golden.
I can imagine this group of kids that, just come together as part of that Tresco family, and just seeing how all of them interact with each other. I mean, that would be fascinating to go ahead and witness that, but how much that does for, like how much it did for Sam.
Yeah.
And that ability to go ahead and interact with others that are around his age, that have similar problems or different things like that. And that for him must have done just wonders for attitude. I mean, can you speak to, like, how did he feel like when he was done were you going home after a session like that?
Well, those became his peer group and
Mhm.
his friends, and he talked about them as we would leave and things. And I didn't offer my thoughts on it. I would just ask him questions.
Ah,
Now of course he's going down a journey and he's learning to talk now, and
mhm.
so he's now starting to express himself in all of this. But we were in that program before we only had home instruction. We were probably in that program for a good 8 or 9 months.
Mhm.
And I think, being on this podcast today has really been a great opportunity for me to step back and remember,
Mhm.
because it's been 22 years since we did this. And I've got great memories of it. I
Yeah.
have great memories. And there's nothing like watching small children interact with each other with no regard with
Mhm.
what the varying abilities are of each other in that room. And kind of wish I could go back in time and experience it again a little bit.
It's very, you're correct in the sense when you're watching kids interact with other kids, a lot of those barriers that we as adults kind of see in there and the sense in there, they don't have that because these are just other kids.
Right.
Everybody's a little bit different, but nobody really kind of notices that whole thing right there. And you're correct. I'm smiling because I'm thinking the same thing. Kids are more honest with each other,
Oh,
and they don't understand all these things that are supposed to be different,
right.
or things that are supposed to kind of impair your ability and some other things like that. They don't get it.
No, they
And
don't.
I think as adults we should learn a lot from that.
It's life in its purest form, and
Absolutely.
it's great.
Now, of course, you mentioned some of those concerns that you have, and you're worried right that if you had to explain to a lot of parents these days about what it's like, to try and go ahead and go through that right there, what's one of the things that you would tell them to kind of alleviate those concerns that they have about going in for an evaluation?
I think it's trust in the process.
Mm,
When you have an organization like Tresco and Tresco Tots, they've 55 years of experience
55
in
years,
this,
yeah.
and so when you have to trust the individuals involved in that process, and you're going to have your doubts and your concerns and your fears, but you kind of have to let go of those and trust in that these are the experts and these are the
Mhm.
individuals to guide you, your family, and your child through it may be solving a limited ability, or it may just be learning how to work in the world with that limited
Mhm.
ability. But you have to trust in that process. And so I think that as parents, it's really easy sometimes to say, it's going to be okay. I don't need to go engage in something.
Mhm.
But early intervention's the key. And I was grateful that I had a pediatrician that listened to me, took me seriously, and gave me the guidance to come here.
And that is something that I think a lot of parents, like you said, they need to trust in the process, but also just to get, um, I guess you could say, to get that knowledge and say like, okay, if there is something that we need to work on, then we
Right,
can work on it. If there, you may find out that there's nothing wrong at all, and that
right.
maybe these concerns are not anything that you have to worry about. But still, to go ahead and get that evaluation is something that at least will let you know where you stand
Right.
and what's the next step.
Yeah, and if you're a parent that, I mean, that there is either a limited ability, disability, that they're going to help your child move into the world,
Hmm.
and how they will live, and how they will be contributing to their community. And you start that at an early age with a child. And so yeah, I say trust in the process.
That's awesome. That's a great message to have right there. And now, so you went through that process with Sam,
Mhm.
and I think you mentioned earlier, what is he doing these days?
Oh my gosh. So he works for the University of Oklahoma.
There you go.
He does athletic fundraising for the Sooners, and that's his background. He has his master's degree now, and he talks a lot.
He talks a
So
lot.
yeah, so maybe we can give a
Well,
big shout out to Tresco Tots for what they did.
well, as a fundraiser, you have to talk a lot. You're
Absolutely.
always talking to people,
Yeah.
and mainly saying, "Give me your money." But
Yep.
yeah, that's good to hear right there. And now that I know that he works for that particular university, I have some friends that are fans. We'll talk about merchandising later.
All right.
Okay, but I know somebody whose dog's name is Sooner because that's what they have,
Okay.
and the other dog's name is Boomer.
Um,
So that's how much of a fan they
wow.
are.
Okay.
Yeah. But of course, now you've gone through that process here. But we did mention that you were on board. So what actually
Yes.
drew you to that part?
I think that I became a raving fan. I was one of those individuals that went out and told other parents about
Hmm.
it and other people in the community. Pam Lillibridge was the CEO
Hmm.
back at that time, probably right around 2002. And so she came to me and she said, I just remember saying, you are such a fan of what we do. Would you be willing to serve on the board? And at that point in my life, and actually still, if you look back at a lot of um, the boards I've served on and things like that. Beginning of life is really important to me, children and learning and reading. And
Hmm.
so a lot of my work over time has been with small children, babies, school age children, and beginning of life type services. So it fit. I was new to the community. I would felt like it was a great honor for Pam to come to me and ask me if I wanted to serve on it. And I learned all I knew at that point was what Tresco Tots was about.
Hmm.
And then when you become a board member, you get put on a different platform and you get to look at the expansive services being
Hmm.
involved. You attach to the mission. You look at adult services and you realize that these are people that are beginning to contribute to our
Yeah.
community. They're able to live and work right here in southern New Mexico, and so I think that was the changing moment for me, was looking at all the different services that
Mhm.
Tresco provided.
Absolutely, and how those trust services will evolve over time and everything else like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
How long did you spend on the board? What was the year that you
Um,
started?
Probably, if I take a guess, I think it's about 2002 to 2005. So three years. This beautiful campus we're on right now didn't even exist.
Yeah.
I mean, it was off Nevada, and that's where Tresco Tots was. So now I'm getting to see really how far it's come in this many
Yes, we
years.
we had an interesting story about taking a wrong turn in Albuquerque and heading
As,
over to Nevada,
as
right?
wasn't Albuquerque, it was
But
from Roadrunner to
well,
Nevada.
it was a
Just so
road
you
runner.
know.
Okay, so
Okay.
the road runner took you to Nevada.
I
So
know.
that's
So
okay. That's what I know. All right.
it's true.
I couldn't help myself. You had to
No,
make
it's true.
it.
I know. I
Some
own up to
Looney,
why I'm late.
yeah, the Looney Tunes jokes, just have to get in every once in a while. But yeah, and like you said, you're coming into this campus. But how does it feel to see how much of this has grown and expanded? And we talked about 55 years, and then as I mentioned in the intro, 12 different counties across the state that they're serving these days.
It's expanded so much since my time here from 2002 to 2005, and I've had the privilege of getting to know Sylvia Washington over
Hmm.
the past year, and so I've been following her and learning more about Tresco
Hmm.
and how these 55 years, the difference, and because really I haven't been involved with Tresco now for probably what 16, 17 years,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. But you're right. Look at all the counties, the impact across the state of New Mexico. Sometimes people say we're that little town down in southern New Mexico, and then you look at the impact of an organization like Tresco that expands across the state, and you take a lot of pride in that.
One of the things that I've begun to notice as since I've started doing the podcast and working with Tresco is you start to realize certain things that you didn't before. Like whenever you're taking a trip up to Albuquerque and you stop by one of those rest areas, right? And you're looking like this place looks great, and you
Yeah,
know that, and then in the back of your mind, it's like, I think I talked to the guys at this
yeah,
one. I think I talked to some of these people here. Because when I first moved here, uh, the one thing I knew about Tresco was just the Tresco Works program.
got
But
it.
like you said, once you start to learn more into it and you get into it, you see the other programs that are in there. So, I mean, what was that like for you just to discover all those other programs and the reach that they really had just beyond dots?
Well, what it shows is that it's great leadership
Hmm.
because they've continued to expand their vision and move into other areas. I'm a big believer when you get it right as an organization, you ought to get bigger and expand
Hmm.
and move those opportunities into other places. So it tells me, one, that they've had great leadership of
Hmm.
this organization. I remember the staff members back from when Sam was here, as well as those years on the board. And those are people that have a passion for something really, really deep in their heart. They're stewards. That's what they are. They're stewards in their community. And so what that tells me is that that culture hasn't changed. Because if I saw that culture back 16, 17 years ago, and now it's flourishing and it's bigger and it has more of an impact on New Mexico, that means that staff, leadership, it's the same culture, same mission, everyone moving forward.
Yeah, that mission that was there 16 years ago when you were here is the same mission, and then they've expanded upon that as
Oh,
well. That
yep.
yeah, so that is awesome. So, what is it that you would like? Is there anything else that you would like to let people know in general about Tresco? Maybe something they didn't think about, or the message that you would like to get out to people in general about Tresco.
Well, I'm going to take a guess
Okay.
that there are a lot of people in our community that don't know what Tresco is.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you hear this, go pull up their website.
Read.
Okay, well, go pull up their website and learn more about the organization. See if there are ways that you can contribute financially, as a volunteer. Get to know their board of directors. Get to know people involved. You may have a family member, a friend, a neighbor that doesn't know about Tresco, that you could connect them to Tresco because of their needs as a family or an individual. So, I think that if you're listening to this, you can take the idea of Tresco, and whether it's supporting it or it's connecting people in need of those services, that you can immediately become part of this organization.
Yeah, and the one thing that you'll learn is that mission is shared by each and every employee and each and every person that is here with Tresco. That's the one thing that has always surprised me. Everyone that I've talked here
Yeah.
at Tresco shares that mission, and they take pride in the work and everything that they do to go ahead and have that. And that's very rare that you
Right.
would actually get a company where from top to bottom you get a lot of people that will nary a bad word is heard.
I know that's true. No, I think that like I said before, if you've got something was right years ago, and then it was just put on to different levels, and it's
Mhm.
continued to grow. But I would love to see our community know more about Tresco, be able to connect more people, to Tresco that are in need of their services for individuals or families. Um, I guess it boils down to a respect, and you're valued here. And I think that often people are frightened to make the connection and make the phone call. And this is just an environment where you're valued, you're respected, and people ought to engage.
Well said. I don't even think you needed me here for the last half of that.
Oh, I did. I promise you I did.
No, but well said, and that's something like you said, and that's one of the things that hopefully we'll be able to accomplish with this podcast, and having guests like yourself on it that could tell us. And really interesting to get both sides of that story.
Yeah.
That someone as a parent that went through that program, and then as a board member who's behind the scenes and being able to see everything that's said right
Yeah.
there. And I can tell, from the smile on your face from the first time you
Oh.
walked into this building, that there are some very treasured and good memories for you with Tresco.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, this has been such a great experience for me, because I kind of got to go back in time in my mind and remember what the services were like for us, as well as my time on the board. And it does bring a smile to my face.
Just out of curiosity, I just thought about this. Did you ever hear Sam refer to some of those experiences back then? Or does he remember some of those?
That's a great question. And I actually thought about calling him on my way over here. And I thought,
Let's
no,
call him right now. Where's your phone? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
We won't do that. Sam.
But I do want him to watch this, because I want him to remember. There's no question that we have talked about it many, many times in our family over the years. So, but how many memories come out of being a 2 to 3 year old? I don't know how many are actual memories, or they're me telling him the stories of everyone, But the other thing is, I thought, wouldn't it be awesome, that group of 9 or 10 kids that we were in that room with those parents? Wouldn't it be great to know where each of those individuals are now? And
that would be awesome. That would be amazing.
I just that kind of hit me, because I just remember as parents, all of us there in that room together, and we were all there for our child, but you then are also there for each other.
For each other.
Yeah. And so I'll have to make sure that Sam listens to this. And, I know that if you had Sam sitting here, he is a great connector of individuals. He loves Southern New Mexico,
Hmm.
even though he went off to college in the state of Kansas and works in Oklahoma now. This is home.
Yeah,
And so I kind of want to relive some of that with
yeah,
him.
that's right. So, Sam, if you're watching this, first off, the merch thing we'll talk about, and then second, let us know how you feel about this whole thing because it's very obvious that your mom is yeah. I'm not gonna cry.
Okay.
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
Don't cry.
But very obvious that how you feel and that your joy with
No,
Tresco and the effect that it's had on you.
no.
And I'm sure that there are many others that it's had that
He
effect
is
on. But Sam,
definitely.
I'm curious as to, if you can remember any of those things or some of those experiences, it'd be pretty awesome
I
to go
might
ahead
bring
and hit
those
for that.
back to you.
Yeah,
Just
go ahead
wait.
and bring that
Yeah.
up. Have him call Stacy. Maybe Stacy
Okay.
can
Yeah.
work on that
Maybe next time he's
reunion.
in town, he could do a podcast with
Yeah,
you.
there you go.
Yeah.
That would be very that would be very cool to get someone on that side of the fence right there, that experience right there.
Stacy's known him since he was 2 years old, as a
There you
matter
go.
of fact. Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for coming in. We really
Oh, thank you,
appreciate that. It
Gina. I
was
really
really good to
appreciate it.
get your view of those experiences as a parent, as a board member, and the obvious enthusiasm that you have for Tresco and the program. So with that, we'll kind of wrap things up for this week. We'll see you guys in another couple of weeks when we, talk Tresco.